Hi, my name is Heather, and welcome to another episode of Cover to Cover Procreate Edition, my series where I share my process with you, illustrating a children's book using Procreate and doing the layout and publishing. It's been quite a while since I've created an episode for this series because I had a brain tumor and that kind of threw a wrench in my plans. I did end up illustrating a lot of the pages while I was in recovery from my brain tumor surgery, but I do still have a few pages left to illustrate, so I'll be showing you my process with those pages. In the first video of this series, I created a storyboard where I did sketches for all of the pages of the book, and I have that pulled up here. So whenever I'm ready to illustrate a new page, I just pick which page that I want to work on, and then when I'm done working on that page, I just check it off. And that helps me to stay on task and to see how many pages I have left, and really helps to keep me motivated. So I'm going to pick a page to work on today. And I think I want to work on the very first page of the book where Bitsy Bee is waking up in the morning in her little matchbox bed and she's yawning and stretching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the layer that I have my sketch on, and then I'm going to grab my select tool and I'm just going to select the artwork, and then I'm going to swipe with 3 fingers and do copy. Then I'm going to go back to my gallery and I'm going to create a new file. And I actually have the size saved here for a children's book page for this book. I'm doing an 8.5 by 8.5 book. So as you can see here, the size that I'm doing for a single page is 8.627 inches wide by 8.75 high. And that is because I add a little bit extra for bleed. And if you want to see how all that calculation works, I do have a video called What is Bleed that explains to you what bleed is and why we add extra for bleed. So I'm just going to click on that one, and I'm just going to swipe with my 3 fingers and paste. And now I'm just going to size my sketch up so that it fills the page. And the 2 lines that I have up here are the lines for text. And this is very important that when you sketch out your pages, you plan for where you want your text to go. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to run into issues later when you're trying to put text on your page and you have nowhere to put it, or you have to put it over things that are in the background and it's going to be too busy and hard to read the text. So that's why I always like to plan for where the text is going to go, so it can just be a nice and plain background behind the text. So I'm just going to take this layer and I'm going to reduce the opacity and make it kind of light, so that way I can just draw right underneath it. So then I'll just create a new layer and I'm just going to drag it underneath the sketch layer, and then I can start drawing. Since I've already drawn this character quite a few times in these other files, I always like to copy and paste it and then kind of work off that, and that will keep my character somewhat consistent. So I'm going to pick the one where the pose matches the best. So I think I'll pick this one right here where she's on the phone. So I'm just going to go to my layers, and I have her grouped right here. So I'm actually going to take this and copy the whole group over to the other file. And in order to do that, I'm just going to press and hold on this group, and then I'm going to drag it. And then I'm actually going to take my other finger and click on the word gallery. And then I'm going to take my other finger and click on the artwork I want it on. And then I'm just going to drop it. The one weird thing though, for some reason, it always puts the layers in the exact opposite order of the order it's supposed to be in. So first of all, let me just delete these top 2. And then everything is in the opposite order. So like the bottom layer of the head, I'm just going to pull it all the way to the top. And then the next one, I'll put it under that layer. And then the next one will go under that layer. And I'll just do that until they're all back in the proper order. The other thing it does is that it puts the opacity of everything back to 100%, but the wings aren't supposed to be 100% opacity, so I'm just going to go back to this one and see what I had the wings set at, because I don't remember. So I'm going to click on the N, and I have them at 64. So then I'm going to go back to this one, and I'm going to set this at 64. And now I'm just going to group this back together. So I'm grabbing all the pieces of my bee, and I'm going to click group. And now that I have that copied over, I'm just going to hide it. And first I'll work on the background, and then I'll work on modifying the bee. So I'm going to go to this layer under here that I had created before, and I'm just going to decide what I want her bedroom to look like, because I haven't done that at all yet. And I think I do want it to be kind of girly. So maybe we'll do some purple for the floor. And for my brush, I'm going to use the Bardo brush colored pencil because I really like that one. My favorite brushes are the ones from Bardo brush, so I definitely recommend getting those ones. And now I'm just going to start this. I'm not making the floor perfectly straight across because this is really inside of a beehive, so I don't know. I just feel like it wouldn't be perfect. And then I'm going to do a wall color, so I'll create a new layer, and I'm going to drag it underneath that layer. And since this is the inside of a beehive, I think maybe I'll do like a yellowish, orangish kind of a color. Maybe not quite orange and not quite yellow, like between. And I'm just going to drag that color onto it so that it fills the whole thing. Now I want to add a little bit of shading to the wall. So I'm just going to hide my sketch layer, and I'm going to be on the wall color, and I'm just going to make this color a little bit darker. So I'm going to go a little more orange and then a little bit over to the right here to make it a little darker. Oh, and actually one brush that I really love for really big texture, like on walls, is the sponge/oil brush, and that's just one of them that comes with Procreate. So that's under the art brushes. So I'm just going to do some of that maybe along the bottom, like that. Maybe I'll make it a little darker. And it's just like a very subtle texture. And then I'm going to show my sketch layer again. I'm noticing now that the bee and the window together, they look kind of off center. So I'm going to actually move this left a little bit. I think I want them like there. So it's centered a little better. And then for the window, I actually have a octagon shape that I used for another window in a different drawing. So I'm going to grab that because it's really annoying to try to do a perfect one. It's just too hard. So in this picture that I did of her coloring in the den, I have this window right here. So I'm actually going to copy that. So I'm just going to pick that layer, and I'm going to swipe my 3 fingers and do copy. And then I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paste. And it is a little bit smaller than the one that I want. So let's put it kind of like that. And apparently I had something else drawn on this layer too. So I'm just going to grab that, swipe with my 3 fingers, and cut just to get that away. Now I did resize this in Procreate, and that's a very bad thing to do because Procreate does not resize well. Even if you're resizing smaller than the original size, it's going to end up blurry, which you can tell, like if you zoom in, see how blurry these edges are? They're not sharp like they usually are when I would draw with the brush. But what I plan to do is I'm going to just use this as a guide because I don't really want it to be a wood frame in her bedroom anyways. I'd rather it be something kind of more maybe modern and like something I would have liked when I was younger. So I'm just going to turn the opacity down, and then I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to grab white. I'm going to go back to my colored pencil brush. And I would have had this window higher up in the picture, but I needed to leave room for the text. So that's why I have it down kind of low. So I'm just filling this in now. And now I can just delete that other layer. So I'll just swipe to the left and delete. And I do want to add some shading to this one. So I'm going to click on the layer and select Alpha Lock. And then this way it locks the transparency so I don't color outside of it. So now I'm just going to select like a light gray and I'll add a little bit of shading here. And then I think I just want to go a little bit lighter to do some kind of bigger shading here. Now I can draw whatever's going to be coming through the window, which this is going to be morning when she's waking up in the morning, so it's going to have the sun coming through. So I'm going to add another layer underneath this one, and I'm just going to find some kind of happy blue. I'm just going to fill that in. I always like to add a little bit of some kind of shading or maybe even like a different kind of blue, but I'm going to lock the opacity here. So that way I don't go outside of it. Now I can draw the sun, so I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to grab my colored pencil and a yellow, and this is kind of a brighter yellow with less orange in it, so it'll be a little bit different from the wall color. I don't really want them to be exactly the same. I think I want to add like some sun rays coming out too, so I'm going to put another layer underneath that one. I think that's okay, but I'm just going to bring the opacity down. So I'm just going to pull this down a bit. And then I also want it to stay confined to the window because I don't want it coming out of these sides here. So I'm going to click on this layer and I'm going to do clipping mask. And that way it's only going to show up on top of the blue part. And I'm going to create another layer. And for this one, I'm going to do her little matchbox. So I'm going to grab white. Oh, I do like to make sure it's straight. So I'm going to turn on my guides. So I'm just going to click on the wrench here. And I'm going to go to Canvas. And I'm going to turn on the drawing guide. Now I can hide my drawing guide. And now I'll go ahead and fill this in. I'm going to use a slightly different shade of white for the foot of the bed because I just want you to be able to delineate between the side and the foot of the bed. So I'm just going to make this a little bit darker and then I'll use that to color in. And by the way, you might have noticed that I have these sizes saved. And this is a really cool thing that you can do in Procreate because you can kind of keep your artwork a little more consistent, especially if you're doing like multiple pictures for a book and you want the line weight to be consistent throughout the whole book. So I'm already at the max with this one, so I can't do any more because I guess 4 seems to be the max. But let's say I go to this brush, and if I really like this one size here, then I can click on it and then there's a plus sign here and I'll just click the plus sign and now it has saved that. So if I ever want to go back to it again, I just click on that little dash. It's really cool. Now I want to add my little burgundy strip here. So I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to pick a red and then make it a little bit desaturated. So I'll pull it down and that'll make it more of like a burgundy color. And then it kind of looked like it was a bunch of little dots, or actually maybe even a honeycomb pattern. So I'm going to open a new tab and I'm just going to search for honeycomb pattern because there's no way I'm going to be able to do that by myself. Pull it over. And I'm just going to use this kind of as a guide. Maybe kind of like that. I'm going to create a new layer And I'm just going to fill this in. I'll do a few of these so that they don't all look exactly the same, because I still want this to have kind of that handmade look to it, but then I can copy and paste them, and then that'll make the process go a lot faster. So now I'm just going to swipe with my 3 fingers and duplicate, and then I can just move these down. Now I'm just going to merge those 2 layers, so I'll just squish them together, and I'll duplicate, and then I'll merge those and duplicate, and then I'll just fill the whole thing in. And then I only want the honeycomb pattern to go on this rectangle here. So I'm actually going to create another layer where I'm going to make that rectangle that honeycomb pattern can sit on. I could maybe even reduce the opacity of the matchbox too. That'll help me to see what I'm doing a little bit better. And I'm just going to trace over where I want that honeycomb pattern. And now I can hide my sketch. I will show my box all the way. And then I'm going to show my honeycomb pattern. And I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to do clipping mask. So now it's only showing up in that little box. And the other thing is the way that the matchbox is, there's the box inside that kind of slides out. So I want it to be obvious that there's a little box inside that slides out. So I'm going to go on my box layer, and then I'll just create a new layer above it. And I'm going to get a gray that's darker than what I have there. And I'm going to create a line here and along these edges. Now I just want to do the stamp. So I'm going to add a new layer on top of all of that. Let me see what I want the stamp to look like. I like the ones that have flowers on them. Those are cute. I think the green one with purple flowers is pretty cute. So maybe I'll do something kind of like that. And I'm just going to have this kind of come up and over the bed, similar to how a blanket would be. I also need to make the outside with that perforated edge. Now I need to add that perforation. I'm going to grab my eraser. Now I'm going to put some kind of flowers on it. I think I do want the flowers to be a different color because it's just too much purple. Pink might be good. I can add my bee. Oh, she does have a little pillow behind her. That's right. Now I can draw the bee. I'm going to grab my group that I had copied, and I'm going to put her about here. Her face is like completely different, so I'm going to just get rid of her expression here, and I'll just redraw that. And I'm going to hide the wings for now. And I think she's probably not going to be wearing her bow, because I don't think she would wear that to bed. For her antennas, I'm just going to make a new layer, and then I'll just draw the new ones on. And then at least by looking at the other ones, I can make sure that I keep everything consistent, like consistent sizes and line weights and all that. Now I can just delete those other antennas. Her body is at a different angle. So I'm going to grab the stripes and the body, and I'm going to grab the select tool, and I'll rotate it. And when you rotate something in Procreate, Procreate does a really bad job of it. So anytime I rotate something, I always go over it, because if you zoom in, you can see just how blurry this is. So you can see how like the edge of the head is a little bit crisper, and the edge of this black line is just really blurry. So if I just grab the same color and just kind of go over this edge, see how much clearer this is and how much more crisp it is when I go over it. So I just make sure to go over all of the edges. I don't necessarily go over the texture in the middle because I feel like it's not as noticeable. So maybe I can be a little more lazy with it. But I do always go over at least these edges. I do want to make sure that she is underneath the covers. So let me actually move this underneath the postage stamp, and then the pillow can go underneath her. Now I can just draw her arms. And now I can just add her face. Although now that I look at it, I don't know if I want a yellow wall because she's yellow. Maybe that's too much yellow. So I'm going to grab that layer and I'm going to go up here to the hue, saturation, and brightness. And let's pick a different color. Pink would match with her bedspread. Oh, that's kind of cute. That's like a different purple. I actually kind of like that. I think I might do that one. Oh, I have to remember her wings too. There is one other thing I think I'd like to add. Since the sun's coming through the window, I think I would like to have a shadow for the bed. Now I think I'm done. I think this looks pretty good. I'm not going to add any other details because I do want to keep the top part open for text. Thanks so much for watching and for sharing this journey with me. And stay tuned for the next video where I'll illustrate another page of the book. I hope this was helpful if you're illustrating your own children's book in Procreate. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, or as always, you can email me at heather@heathercash.com. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so I know to make more videos like this. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!